Don't know what Magnum Manus means. Fire. New word.
Our next speaker is Dan Sanchez. He is the head of our online Mises Academy. If you go to the Mises.org website, you can find our academy there, and we have really interesting, outstanding classes taught by professors who are well-versed in Austrianism. It's the kind of stuff you can't get at your high school, you can't get at your local college. And we have a lot of great courses from the past that are in the hopper that are archived. So if you're interested in any of that kind of thing, go to Mises.org and click on the Academy. Reach out to Dan Sanchez. He is a very well-read Austrian and libertarian. and he is going to talk about how inflation acts
libertarian.
as a tax. Thanks.
Speaking of the Mises Academy, Joe Salerno, who you just heard, is going to teach a class starting this week, starting April 15th. And there's a flyer for his class. So it's called Understanding Monetary Chaos. And so he'll be talking more about what he's already been talking about. So there's a meme going around of Ben Bernanke. And in the meme, he's ordering a pizza. And the pizza guy asks him, would you like your pizza cut up into 4 pieces or 8 pieces? And he answers, better make it 8 pieces. I'm feeling extra hungry. So if you understand why that's kind of a silly response, you'll understand some of the things I'm going to be talking about. Like Joe said, inflation, that there are 2 definitions. There's increase in the supply of money, and there's an increase in the price level. And my point is that no matter which definition you're talking about, inflation is always a tax. And as a tax, it's always a redistribution of wealth. It's always taking wealth from some people and giving it to other people, either the government itself or to a beneficiary of the government. Now, going back to Joe's Angel Gabriel scenario, it's easy to understand why everyone would like their own personal money supply to increase. That if you have more money personally, then you are better off. But then, is it really correct to extrapolate from that if that happens with everyone, that everyone would be better off? If everyone just magically had their money supply increase, if the society would be wealthier that way? I mean, if that were true, then great news. The government has that kind of magic power. With fiat money, the amount of money is whatever the government says it is. So let's just imagine that the government just told everyone, you know, you could just add some zeros to your bills. You know, it's kind of messed up that not everybody can afford a new computer. And so let's just add 3 zeros to all of our bills. So even if you only have $1, now you have $1,000. Now everyone in the whole society can afford a new computer. But with that logic, why stop there? Not everyone can afford a private jet. Just keep adding zeros until everyone in the world can afford a private jet. And then society is so wealthy that people are just flying jets just to get a gallon of milk. Obviously, there's something wrong with that. And to help understand what's wrong with that, let's imagine this room as the whole world, that out there it's only space, and that the whole economy is in this room. So the floor is all the available land. All the objects are different capital goods like tools and factories.
We get back to
or
the
consumer
other
goods,
stuff
things
after
that we
this
actually
video.
consume and
You just
use
watch this
for
video.
their own sake. And that we are the population. So different people here own different of those resources. Some own land, some own capital goods, some own consumer goods. And we also all have money. Let's say that it's a fiat money system, and that your memo pads, or your whatever paper you have in front of you, is your computer screen, and it shows your bank balance. And let's say just coincidentally, everybody has $1 million. So let's everybody write $1 million on a piece of paper, okay? Just write $1 and then 6 zeros. No commas though, just 6 zeros, okay? That's the money that you use. And so we're all a market economy. Some of us own land, like you, sir, you own the land behind you, and that's forest land. And the person next to you, he's a capitalist. He owns axes and saws, and he rents the land from you. He buys logging rights from you, and he spends some of his money on that. He also spends some of his money on workers at the table in front of him, and those workers take wood from the forest and create plows out of that. And then you, sir, are a farmer. You own the land behind you, and you use some of your $1 million to buy the plow and hire labor to use the plow to make food. Those donuts back there, that's some of our food supply. Now, if any of this stuff that we're talking about, except the money, besides the money, were to duplicate, we'd be better off. If just magically those donuts just all duplicated, then we'd have more food and fewer people would go hungry. Or if the plows or farm workers or farmland magically increased, then we could make more food and everyone would be better off. Or the forest land and the axes and the workers in the forest, if they magically increased, then we can make more plows, which could make more food, which would make us better off. But what about money? Would increasing that make us better off? Well, let's just try it. Let's everybody, on the count of 3, add 1 0 to your bank balance. 1, 2, 3. Did anything change? Look around you. Do we have more buildings, these tables? Are there more donuts back there? Do we have more workers? Are we stronger or smarter as workers now? No. Society is just as wealthy as it would have been if we hadn't added that 0. But that's not the way inflation actually happens. The government's not that magical. They can't just make money increase evenly for everybody. Instead, what they do is they give new money to some people first. So usually those people that they give the money to first, like Joe talked about, are privileged bankers. So let's say that over here at this table, you guys are all privileged bankers. And only they are able to get some of the new money. So now just you guys,
How does Summit do
on the
this?
count
I
of
can't
3,
do this.
write a 0, another 0 next to your bank balance. 1, 2, 3. Okay, now are we richer as a society?
Let's try it
No,
again,
we're still
guys.
not richer. There's still the stuff, the same amount of consumable and producing stuff is still there as if it would have been otherwise if they hadn't added the 0. But are they better off? Yeah, they're better off. But how could they be better off unless other people are worse off if, like we've already established, the same amount of stuff exists as before? They can't get more stuff without other people getting less stuff. Normally, that's not the way a market works. Normally, markets are win-win, that if you exchange with someone, that both of you win, because by definition, you value what you got more than what you gave up. But with this, it's definitely win-lose. They've won, but since there isn't more stuff, they can't win without someone losing. That is redistribution. The government has done something that makes some people richer at the expense of other people, and that's a tax. Government has redirected some wealth from some people to other people just by declaration, just by fiat. They're not richer because they produced more, that they did a better job producing. They're richer just because of something that the government did. Now, how do they end up getting richer? Well, one way is, let's say that you, sir, that you would like to buy a house. You'd like to buy her house. But so would you, Anna, over here. Now, you bid for the same house. Now, Anna loves the house. But now she's not as rich, and you are much richer than you would have otherwise been. And so you're able to outbid her. She says, oh, okay, I'll pay $50,000. And you don't even love the house that much. It's just like a guest house, just like an extra house, whatever. But you've got so much money, like Joe talked about, burning a hole in your pocket. You can bid, sure, I'll pay $60,000 instead. And so now the house that, if the government had not inflated, would have gone to Anna, is now going to you. It's almost like the government reached out and redirected the house from Anna to you. That's redistribution. And we have definite winners and losers. Okay?
I need to find
who else is a winner?
My reference chart here.
The person who sold the house. Because if the inflation hadn't occurred, she would have only been able to sell the house for $50,000, but the price got bid up to $60,000. So she benefits. Well, then can you then reason from that well, all the prices of things that we sell will get bid up and everyone will benefit? Well, remember, that's impossible because adding zeros didn't increase the amount of stuff that can be consumed or used to produce. So someone has to lose. Eventually, some people get the money only after the costs of the things that they pay for get bid up. So maybe something that you sell, like your labor, the price of your labor goes up, your wages go up, but not as fast as your rent went up, or not as fast as your groceries went up. So you end up losing. So that's another way that, that inflation is a redistribution. What happened is that it redistributed wealth away from people who got the money later to people like the house seller who got the money earlier. And one of the institutions that gets the money earliest is the government itself. So the government really benefits from this process as well. Another way that it's a redistribution. What if you borrow money and you owe $1,000? Well, just because inflation happens, your debt doesn't change, but your wages do. And after your wages go up, then owing $1,000 isn't that big of a deal anymore. You are a winner. But what if you're a saver? What if you saved $1,000 just in case you got hurt at work, and so that you could afford to not work for a while as you get better? But then when you do get hurt, you find that all the prices went up. So you thought that saving $1,000 would get you through that, but the prices went up, so it doesn't get you through that. And so you are a loser. So again, it's a redistribution, taking wealth from debtors and giving it to savers. Now, what would happen if this kind of wealth transfer was conducted the normal way with just taxes and welfare? So what would happen if these losers instead were taxed of what they lost? So the person who doesn't get the house, the person who gets the money later,
I don't know how I'm gonna
the
find
person
this
who
video.
tried to save,
For image.
if they were actually sent a tax bill by the IRS and they had to pay a tax, and then later on they saw welfare checks or corporate subsidies or whatever going out to the winners, going out to the person who got the house and the person who got the money sooner, earlier, or the debtor.
This is where I'm getting all these
would
videos
happen
from, by
then?
the way.
They would get
So to
really
find-
upset.
This is
They
the
would
image.
see that happening and they'd want to put a stop to that.
Where
The
this
IRS in
was.
this situation is like a mugger. You see the mugger pointing a gun at you. You see him taking the money away from you. And maybe if he's like a
Right now we're
welfare
like somewhere.
giving mugger, that you see him
Yeah,
giving it
inflation
to
has
other
a
people.
self-tax.
But the
Oh, this
Fed
is really
is more like a pickpocket than a mugger. That you don't even realize it's happening.
I'm gonna re-examine
Okay?
this
It's
in a second.
a lot more subtle. The person who lost out on the house, all they see is that, oh, well, you know, them's the breaks. I got outbid by this person. That's not the government's fault. Or the person who just sees his wages going up slower than his cost of living, he said, man, times are tough, but that's not the government's fault. Or the saver who said, man, I'm really burning through my saving faster than I
Who's
thought I would,
this?
but that's not the
Hello.
government's fault.
Oliver,
So this kind of redistribution, this kind of tax,
you guys
is
didn't
much,
see that?
much more insidious because people don't even know it's happening, and so people are less willing to resist, to demand that it stop happening. And that's
Space
why
Cadet to the
Ludwig von
picture.
Mises,
You want to link to
the
that
great
picture or what? This one? I'll just post this in chat, I guess. No, that video's kind of bonds anyway. Weirdovideo.com.
In a few years, I'll start voting.
No
I've been following
problem.
the campaign. So much was said on both
I'm probably
sides.
gonna go over that
I'm
soon. That's where I'm like
confused.
getting all these
How can
videos
you
right
know
now.
what to
I
believe
went
when there's
through
so
and
much
like
propaganda?
downloaded
Perhaps
all
I
these
can help you,
videos,
Chuck.
watched all these
It
videos.
might also be
I haven't
called
read all the
victory for
books, but I've
propaganda.
like
But that would have been equally true
I'm
if
familiar
our
with the
opponent had
topics,
won.
I guess.
But that's what I mean. Everybody uses propaganda.
Actually, I haven't read a lot of these
No, not
books.
everybody, Chuck. I've been studying it for some years. Propaganda made this picture. Propaganda skillfully employed to turn millions of men to a cruel hatred of their fellow men. On the other hand, propaganda often persuades us to help our fellow men. The products of our factories are also known around the world through propaganda in the form of advertising and salesmanship. The study of history reveals a great deal of propaganda that has been used to fight wars and win wars. Propaganda can also be used for peace. So you see, Chuck, propaganda is important. Well worth any time you give studying it. I see that.
You can also suggest videos, by the way, because I'm just making a
Begin by
playlist.
investigating the techniques of
Just
propaganda.
kind of like doing other things, so I'm watching the videos.
I've listed some of the main ones. Glittering generalities, transfer, name calling, card stacking, testimonial, plain folks, and bandwagon. You'll find these techniques used in many places, in many ways, for many... You'll find
Plain folks.
plain folks and bandwagon. You'll find these techniques used in many places, in many ways, for many different purposes. Your job is to recognize them when you see them.
My first job is to understand what they mean. What is a glittering generality?
Well, let me see. That headline you were quoting, a victory for good government. Good government is a phrase we use many times during the campaign. We said the mayor stood for good government and promised good government.
But it's true, isn't it?
What's true? What does good government mean? Is the mayor's idea of good government the same as yours?
I see.
Hmm.
It's a glittering generality.
One of the best.
There's another.
Yes. And why do you suppose our opponents chose that phrase?
I guess because everybody likes a real American.
Right. And they wanted to transfer that liking for a real American to Mr. Butler.
And that's what you mean by the technique of transfer.
That's it. Now let's see if you can recognize another technique. A day or so after that poster came out, I said in one of my campaign speeches, our opponent advertises himself as a real American. I say he is unreal, unrealistic. He is a visionary, a theorist, a dreamer. He is so thirsty for public office that like a weary traveler in the desert, he sees a mirage, and he is trying to sell it to you as real. There. Now, what would you call that?
That's name-calling, visionary, theorist, dreamer.
That's right. And those are very polite names. But now I want you to listen to something else. For my collection of propaganda materials, I've made a special record of part of one of Mr. Butler's radio speeches.
Mayor Cooper asks that he be judged by his performance in office. Very well. Let's ask him who was mayor when the municipal waterworks fell into such a state of disrepair that the whole town was without water for 2 days. Let's ask him. But no, let's not. It might embarrass him.
You recognize the technique?
No, I don't.
It's a tricky one.
Is it true
I was
about
gonna
the
say no
waterworks?
too. I was
Partly
like, I have
true.
no idea.
That's what we call card stacking. Cooper was mayor when the pumping station broke down, but it was the men in office before him who allowed it to get into such a rundown condition, and it finally gave way before he could get anything done.
I see. And card stacking is choosing some facts and leaving out others and arranging them to suit your purpose.
That's the idea. Now, did you see our little campaign movie?
Yes, a couple of times.
Well, let's look at it again. as an example of propaganda technique.
It was a testimonial, wasn't it?
Yes, we used other techniques, too. See if you can spot them. Will you get the light, please?
Land's sakes. A body hardly has time enough. The house to clean, and the washing to do, and the men folks to feed. They like their chocolate cakes, too. But I do want to take time to tell you that I've known Dick Cooper ever since he was knee-high to a grasshopper. He comes of a good, respectable family, just as honest as the day is long. And he knows our town. He's one of us. That's why I'm going to vote for Mayor Cooper. And all my friends are going to vote for him, too.
We'll stop a minute, Chuck. Recognize the technique?
That must be what you call plain folks.
That's right. You'll find many versions of the appeal based on the common man, the man on the street, log cabin to president. Now let's look at the rest of the movie.
Mayor Cooper. Her friends are voting for Mayor Cooper. Your friends are voting for Mayor Cooper. The people know what they want, and what they want is Mayor Cooper. Don't you be left behind. Get on board the Victory Special. Vote for Mayor.
That ending's easy to spot. It's the bandwagon.
Yes, the propaganda we've been talking about is easy to detect. But a great deal of propaganda is much more hidden, much harder to detect.
That's what's bothering me. Even in a small local election, there's so much propaganda. That poster, a real American. It uses a transferred device. Does that mean it isn't true?
Not necessarily. Evaluating propaganda isn't that simple. Recognizing the technique is one step. Another step is to know the purpose. What is the purpose here?
That's easy. To get people to vote for Butler.
Yes, to persuade people that Butler is the better man, to move them to vote for him. In short, to sell Mr. Butler to the voters. You'll find that the purpose of most propaganda is to persuade people to believe something, to do something, or to buy something.
All right. But it still doesn't answer my question.
No. Your next step, and it's a big one, is to get the facts.
Well, is he a real American?
Howard Butler was born in this country. He obeys its laws. He's a good citizen. Yes, he is a real American. The same can be said for Richard Cooper. So ask yourself whether the facts support the purpose. Do they support the transfer of feeling from real American to Mr. Butler over Mr. Cooper?
No, I guess not.
Well, that's your fourth step. Weigh the facts against the purpose and the technique.
I think I understand. To know whether propaganda is good or not, whether it's true or not, I should know the purpose, recognize and judge the purpose and technique.
Don't come to a campaign manager.
I might opposition.
Well, that's all right. Whenever you're tracking down propaganda,
The jab.
get as many different points of view as you can.
Do you know something?
What?
I think that it might be interesting to make a really serious study of propaganda.
I find it interesting, and there's plenty to study. Here I have just a few of the many books on the subject. You can read them. You can keep your eyes and ears open for little bits of propaganda. And, of course, you can study whole propaganda campaigns. Here are a few on which I've been gathering material. Hitler and Nazi Germany had a propaganda that ran over many years. Then there's a wealth of propaganda to study on the subject of Russia and communism. There's propaganda to study in our own American elections, national as well as local. And in many of the major issues, such elections often hinge.
Well, if I don't learn about propaganda,
Remember the techniques we outlined for studying it. Propaganda is a powerful force. So powerful that your study of propaganda is important not only to you, but to me and to the world.
Amen. Alright, I think that's like it for politics financial matrix. No, there's some good ones I'm forgetting. I'm just gonna throw in Zeitgeist now, because that's, if you haven't seen that, just go watch it tonight, like right now. Everyone's just talking about money these days. The original Zeitgeist is awful.
Sun's kingdom during the age of Pisces.
This is great.
Also, Jesus' assumed birth date is essentially the start of this age. At Luke 22:10, when Jesus is asked by his disciples where the last Passover would be,
I don't really want to go into religion yet, though. We're still... government political matrix. Oh, I guess I'll just have to grab the stuff I have ready. I don't even know what I have ready now. Let's see. Where the heck is the Cyberpunk Educator? It is so good. Dude, it's gone. Oh, they took it off of YouTube. Oh my god. You'll just have to go to archive.org for this one.
Their head is inside the universe, but I have demonstrated in several of my books
It was a really rare lecture. Robert Anton goes into like the CIA Vatican conspiracy. Right at the planet. I don't know where that is. It's not this video, though.
Hey, it gives us a great deal of pleasure to be able to introduce our Anton Wilson tonight. He's a writer that over the years has not only...
One of my principal sources on the cocaine and heroin links of various banks is Penny Lerno, a journalist for the National Catholic Reporter, who first got onto the trail of the cocaine and heroin laundering business in Miami and was shocked when it led her back to the Vatican. She went to her editor and said, "I'm finding out more and more about the Vatican Bank. Can I print this?" And he said, "Go ahead, keep digging and we'll print it all." And they did.
I guess this one's good enough, dude.
Okay, it gives us a great deal of pleasure to be able to introduce our Anton Wilson tonight.
No, the other
He's a
one
writer
is
that
so
over
much
the years
better.
has not only given us a great deal of pleasure, but has also been very, very influential on our thought.
I don't know if I can ever find this. Let's see. Where's normal?
Has to think of the rights of parents, but then the Demento show to be a true example of the phenomenon called shock radio that has been written up in Time and...
No. Dude, there's such a good video where he talks about everything. He talks about polypeptides, the CIA. Yeah. Oh wait, Blue Fluke has a YouTube? You guys aren't ready for this, but this will eventually be another playlist. Wow. Let's watch some of these. I didn't even know he had a YouTube. I didn't even know this person was sane and still alive. 5 years ago though, so probably not.
Who am I fighting for?
This is nuts. Okay. Okay.
Be careful of society because that's pretty much what they do. They just look at you and they're like, "What the fuck did you do that for? Ew, ew, ew," and they all freak out. And let's just stay away from normal people. They're stupid.
What is this from? This is awesome. Ooh, sorry guys, my ADHD's going crazy. That video seems awesome. Oh, and he talks about they just made the Netflix documentary about the guy that had like the ashram. West Coast United States. Anyway, I don't know how I'm gonna find that.
To everyone. Okay. So here we're here to talk about cybernetics for the masses, which is to say how you and I and Left Anonym here can hack ourselves and hack our bodies, which is really exciting because
Let me just save these really quick.
Ah, yes, that's the Mister device. At one point, I'm on a lot of medications, as you...
I bet.
Okay, so this is just the Northport itself. Sensproof built a custom PCB that runs it, but the whole thing just takes data in from the Compass module for about 2 years. It's not...
Should have pictures of this stuff?
okay. Now, if you have questions, raise your hand. I'll come to you with the mic. Or you should come to me with the mic.
Dude. Mike. Oh.
Sorry, without a mic, it doesn't come up in the feed.
She's kind of hot.
One, how easy is it to get hold of local anesthetics? And
not very.
And two, what repression have you come under?
Kind of into this.
For example, from doctors, have they tried to remove the implants from you?
No, they've advised that I have them removed, but they can't actually make you do anything. They just they refuse to treat any medical problems that have anything to do with the implants because it's self-inflicted.
She dead now?
They tend to get kind of arsey about it. So you'll run into a lot of bullshit, but no one will actually stop you from doing it. Also, getting hold of local anesthetics, by you mean any good anesthetic, you mean anything that ends in cane, almost impossible. You can buy lidocaine powder online, but I don't know how to make it up. There's no instructions online. I managed to find one set of instructions on some survival website about how to mix it up properly, but that's the problem. You need to, if you dose it up too much, you can give yourself a heart attack. So you really need to get the right dosing, and I've never been able to. Also, some medical colleague informs me that sometimes it doesn't work on your hands. So I don't even know. I just do everything without. I mean, if you
What
ice
the
everything
heck?
up, it's not that bad. Okay.
Ice it up. Oh my god, no way. That's too much.
Like 3.
Okay, first, I think you are a hacker. Well, you hack stuff.
Whoa, who's talking to me? Oh, you. I'm sorry.
Leo energy right now.
And the question is, well, it was late, so probably.
This is defo Leo.
What legal and what medical precautions do you use? Just immunization or something?
No, nothing like immunization. I just suggest finding out what's legal to do and what's not, because mostly working on yourself, you're completely fine. I don't know if that's illegal in any
I know, Space Cadet. A master's degree. That's like when you're the most brainwashed.
In England, me doing this to any of you guys leads to 10 years in prison for mutilation with intent to scar. So I wouldn't if I were you. Just do it on yourself. It's usually fine on yourself, but...
Okay. I'm getting distracted. The girl's she has magnetic thing. I'm done. Anyway, what's next? What do we got so far? Oh my god, there's so many playlists. What do I even call it? Mind unlocking? It's too powerful, they deleted it already. It's gone. Wait, what? There we go. Nice little collection so far. Frankfurt School, techniques. I didn't mean to add this to this. Let me see if it's in my legs really quick. Should be in my where's my legs? Maybe it's watch later. Definitely not. Oh, no, wrong video.
Okay, can you hear me? Good. Thanks for.
I can't believe I didn't see this. You can't search this bullshit. Why would you be able to? That'd be way too convenient, right? I'll never find this. Wait. No. What is this? Part 2, where's part 1?
Conditioned by either nourishment or threat. The second circuit is the emotional territorial circuit, and it is imprinted when the infant stands up, walks around, and begins to struggle for power within the hierarchy of the family. The third circuit is the time-binding semantic circuit,
Yeah, this is
and
more.
it is imprinted by human symbol systems and artifacts. This is what controls the local paradigm. The fourth circuit is the socio-sexual circuit, and it is imprinted by the first orgasm mating experience and also tribal taboos. It processes sexual pleasure, definitions of right or wrong, reproduction, parental roles, and the raising of young. The fifth circuit is the neurosomatic circuit, and it is imprinted by ecstatic.
Stop tweeting
spiritual
like stuff like this. It's like not
The sixth
helpful. Like, what does
circuit is
this
the
even
collective
mean?
neurogenetic
I have no.
circuit,
Like, what are you talking
and
about?
it contains the entire evolutionary script, past, present, and future. This is Carl Jung's collective unconscious, and also the realm of archetypes. The seventh circuit is the meta-programming circuit, and this is the realm of conscious reprogramming and re-imprinting of the other circuits. This is the level upon which the Re-Imprinting Yourself personal development program acts. This is you choosing to consciously re-imprint your unconscious mind through the application of symbols and internal.
I mean, come on, guys. How can you not?
Lastly, there is the eighth circuit in the Leary Wilson model, and this is the non-local.
Everyone
quantum
left.
circuit.
They're like, no.
This is the transfer.
And consists of 3 phases equally to the evolution.
That's not even what I wanted. I don't know where this video is. might be somewhere around here. Oh yeah, this thing was cool. Let's see what else. Yeah, French history. Oh, everyone's gone. Cool. Can't find this shit, dude. Can't remember if it was before or after I attempted suicide. Let's see. It's gotta be around here. Oh, you know what? Who's the guy that made the big toe theory? It was actually really good.
If, for example, I give you a telephone number and I ask you to remember the telephone number, I'm going to ask you what that number is in just a couple of minutes. This is what working memory is. It's maintaining information that may be involved in these differences of working memory. And the more anxious a person is, the worse their working memory. The brain indicates that training like social and emotional learning can shape the brain and literally change gene expression in the brain. And research is critically needed now to document the impact of social emotional learning.
Is there any age at which point it may not change? How old is the child?
Here's the good news. Definitively, no. No age. It occurs through, plasticity occurs throughout life.
There was a better video on a related topic. What is this?
What's up? This is Mario, and welcome to Awesome Acoustics.
The purpose of this video is a little bit different from what I typically do, so I prefer to do it as a separate thing and not so much as part of my educational series. In this video, I want to talk about some strange beliefs regarding 432 Hz tuning. I am going to mention tuning systems, so if you want to understand the mathematical basis of different systems, I recommend to watch episode 3 of my educational series. Magnetic resonance of planet Earth is 8 Hz. And since
Oh wow, this is an
256
unlisted video.
and
This is very
432
nice.
are multiples of 8, then this tuning resonates more harmoniously with the Earth and promotes good energies. But here are a bunch of reasons why this just isn't a valid argument. First of all, 440 Hz is also a multiple of 8 Hz, so what's the problem? Tuning A to a certain frequency doesn't make all your music resonant to something. Only the A notes. What about the other notes and the musical scales that don't include the A note? Especially the semitones close to A would still be very inharmonious with the universe or whatever. The Earth has a series of electromagnetic resonances known as Schumann resonances, and the first one is what they refer to as the 8 Hz resonance. However, the first electromagnetic resonance of the Earth is not exactly 8 Hz, but 7.83 Hz. So 432 is not a multiple. And if we look at the frequencies associated with the water molecule or with human organs, we see that they have
What was that, a molecule? 100 tetrahertz? Holy shit, dude. No, there's definitely a correlation between the Schumann resonances.
have absolutely no significant relationship with the numbers 8, 256, or
This guy's just not
432.
having it.
Earth's resonance is electromagnetic, while sound is not electromagnetic but mechanical waves.
Okay. Shout out to Susan Inspired. Oh yeah, how did I forget about this? Synchronization of metronomes. This is classic. Classic.
The second law of thermodynamics tells us that everything in the universe tends towards disorder, and in complex systems, chaos is the norm. So you'd
I might have to put this in the playlist. I also had a great UFO video. I gotta find all this stuff. Where is it? Oh, this might be a good one. I'm looking for stuff that everyone should see, and then also stuff you probably have never seen before.
Because it is the most comprehensive of Masonic symbolism, and it will cover all the symbols. In plain fact, almost every Grand Lodge has a slightly different symbolic structure. The 3 degrees of Masonry take place in King Solomon's Temple. The first degree takes place on the ground floor. The second degree takes place in the middle chamber, and the third degree takes place on King Solomon's porch, which is the porchway entrance to the Holy of Holies. Why should such a collection of architectural sites imply any philosophical background? Well, if you look at this from the point of view of the tape in the great light that says, "Know ye not that ye are the temple?"
Ah, you'll find mathematics in the darndest places.
This one's classic.
First, we'll need a string. Stretch it good and tight, plunk it. Now divide in half. Plunk again. You see? It's the same tone, 1 octave higher. Now divide the next section. And the next. Pythagoras discovered the octave had a ratio of 2 to 1. With simple fractions, he got this. And from this harmony in numbers developed the musical scale of today.
My goodness, you do find mathematics in the darndest places.
You can imagine how excited Pythagoras was when he shared his findings with his pals, a fraternity of eggheads, known as the Pythagoreans. They used to meet in secret to discuss their mathematical discoveries. Only members were allowed to attend. They had a secret emblem, the pentagram.
Pythagoras, boy, put it down. Well, I'll be a persuaded fan.
It was our old friend Pythagoras who discovered that the pentagram was full of mathemagic.
Oh, where
The
is
two
this?
shorter lines combined exactly equal the third. And this line shows the magic proportions of the famous golden section. The second and third lines exactly equal the fourth. Once again, we have the golden section. But this is only the beginning. Hidden within the pentagram is a secret for creating a golden rectangle, which the Greeks admired for its beautiful proportions and magic qualities. The star contains the golden rectangle many times over. It's a most remarkable shape. It can mathematically reproduce itself indefinitely.
I listen to too much music on YouTube.
All these rectangles have exactly the same proportions. This figure also contains a magic spiral that repeats the proportions of the golden section into infinity. To the Greeks, the golden rectangle represented a mathematical law of beauty. We find it in their classical architecture. The Parthenon, perhaps one of the most famous of early Greek buildings, contains many golden rectangles.
I'm gonna find it, I'm telling you.
These same golden proportions are also found in their sculpture. In the centuries that followed, the golden rectangle dominated the idea of beauty in architecture throughout the Western world. The Cathedral of Notre Dame is an outstanding example. The Renaissance painters knew this secret well. Today, the golden rectangle is very much a part of our modern world. Modern painters have rediscovered the magic of these proportions. Indeed, this ideal proportion is to be found in life itself.
Boy, oh boy, oh boy. This is
Boy, oh boy, oh boy, is right.
Donald.
Get me quiet.
No.
Ideal proportion.
Not quite. No, I'm afraid not. Well, we can't all be mathematically perfect.
Oh, yeah? Yeah, I knew I could do it.
Now that you're all pent up in a pentagon, let's see how nature uses this
Oh, I
same
love that part.
mathematical...
Yeah.
You're all... I'm not quite. No, I'm afraid not. Well, we can't all be mathematically perfect.
Oh, yeah? Yeah, I knew I could do it.
Now that you're all pent up in a pentagon, let's see how nature uses this same
All pent
mathematical
up.
form. The petunia. The star jasmine. The starfish. The wax flower. There are literally thousands of members in good standing in nature's Pythagorean Society of the Star.
Holy crap, dude, I learn a lot of stuff.
All
in a
nature's
year.
works have a mathematical
This
logic,
is
and
insane.
their patterns are limitless.
My god, where is this video?
The magic proportions of the golden section are often found in the spirals of nature's designs.
Oh yes, this video is awesome.
The profusion of
Very rare. Anybody into UFOs needs to see this.
Okay, we're gonna close the door.
Thanks. Let me tell you what I'm going to do and where it came from and why I'm doing this now, why I'm pretty much out of the closet on the subject, which I've explored with some seriousness and hopefully appropriate seriousness.
That one's very rare. There's some good stuff somewhere in here about NSA and spying and stuff. I just have to make sure I can find it. Hmm. Oh, Tom Campbell, yeah, this guy. It's 13 videos, though. Whoa. This is when I was like obsessed with neuroplasticity.
larger consciousness system is a digital minimum set of things that you have to understand in order to heal with your mind. It's a wave of the, let's say it's water waves, works like that too. Here's a little source of the wave going through that slit, here's a little source of the wave.
Classic. This what I'm looking for, this kind of stuff. I have like a bunch of videos on the NSA.
Alright, this is our speaker today, Mr. Brian.
You were hit by the Premier hack. How many of you had your medical records compromised? Or the Expedia hack or Equifax where you had your information about your credit? I've had all those. Rate the sellers, and it's very, very much like it is a real business, a multi-trillion-dollar real business.
R.I.P. Alphabet,
yes,
man.
It is.
Oh my god.
And you
because
can rent a botnet, the Gosnim, for $1,500 US. You can rent the servers from them. You can full license, rental with support, telephone support included. Over here, you can get all the decryptors. Do you want Windows or other operating systems? Additional capabilities? Huge new surface areas for problems.
I think that's as far back as Chocolate Shop. They must have deleted that video. That's awful. I can't stand YouTube. The videos are gone all the time. That's alright. There's some good stuff in here. Oh, is it this the fucking LARPer though? I can't stand this. I'm gonna remove this.
Thank you all for joining. And we have what we call wit. And this used to be sort of kind of bogus to spy on people. Ownership of our device.
Technically speaking, should we go and rip out OpenSSL everywhere, or should we start a new SSL stack, or what?
Dislike. Remove this from my playlist. This guy's a LARPer. Anyway, smartphones and privacy. Yeah, can you track me now? Yes.
All right, so you guys are here for the privacy talk. I'm absolutely impressed that we've got this many people here on Sunday, the last time slot. I was sitting here thinking, but like there's going to be people that are going to know you, right? Okay, you're weird, but yeah, sure. Pay cash for the mailbox. Don't do credit cards, right? Same reason. And do 1 year at a time. You get better discount that way, and it's oh, okay, he's a long-term customer. Great. And then start getting your W-2s, your credit cards, your e-commerce shipments, everything shipped there. So, okay, we got this address, we got some property, we got the installation set up now, but there's nothing on the property. I don't plan on living in a tent for the rest of my life, so we got to build a house, right? So, again, cash. Cash is king in this. Then we got to figure out how in the world am I going to get this contractor that's going to build this house, because I have a day job. I'm not going to build a house and do this, right? So, so the question is, do I read in this contractor into this whole game, or do I keep him in the dark? This is very questionable, right? We chose to go with a contractor we trusted, who was a friend, and we briefed him. Again, he said, "You're crazy, but I'll take your money." So, but contractors don't do all the work themselves. They got subs, and so the question is, do you read the subs in or not? And we decided, you know what? No, not going to tell you guys, because you know what? All you're going to do is you're going to show up, you're going to do your work, you're going to get paid, and you're going to go home, and you don't really care. All they really need is knowledge of roughly where it is. And as far as neighbors concerned, this property was picked because we could put in a half-mile driveway and put a big gate on the end of it, right? So neighbors are looky-loos kept away. So during the construction process, we had looky-loos drive their old pickup trucks down, and what y'all doing down here? But we didn't have that problem after we put the gate up, obviously. By the way, don't put this gate up unless it fits with the area, right? Because you have this gate, they're going to like, wow, there's something interesting back there. And you definitely don't want to put this gate up, because then you're going to be like, there's definitely something weird going on back there, and you're going to have some three-letter agencies visit you. So you probably want something more like this, like when in Rome, do as the Romans, right? So we also, on our gate, we left it unmarked. There's no address on it. This is actually interesting, because the country misnumbered, or the county, excuse me, misnumbered our property address, which would have been really cool. If we had put a mailbox out there, they would have realized that was a big bad mistake, because the house number was actually a mile down the road, and then like where it would have been, where that number should have been. So we thought, hey, this is even more fun, because now we've got this extra layer of insulation, right? So if somebody does figure out the house number, they're going to be looking a mile down the road. So eventually we met, entertained several neighbors, and we decided, you know what, we're not going to tell them about this whole game project, whatever experiment thing, because they already think we're weird. So we're just going to not talk to them about that, and they're not likely going to post anything online. A lot of them really don't do the internet for very much of anything. I mean, maybe they text their friends, but that's in Facebook, but that's about it. So next big question, we're starting this house project. We got to get utilities out there, right? Because I'm not going to live like it's 1800. So, electric. We had this installed prior to the house being complete, and it makes sense, right? Because you're going to have contractors, they're going to have power tools, they need electricity. So, therefore, there was no address, just the legal property description. This is interesting. City people like me don't realize that properties don't all automatically have addresses until there's a house on it. And then you actually request the address to be put there, which a real estate agent did. Thank you. But it was, again, a mile down the road and wrong. So what we did is we said, hey, bills, send your bills to this mailing address, which is the UPS store. And they just had this rough address. And, you know, in post-build, we got this nice little form letter from them that said, hey, we noticed your address is incorrect. Please update it. Anyone guess what I did? Ignored it. So it turns out that if you're, you know, paying your bills and on time, they don't care. The squeaky wheel gets the oil, right? So we're not the squeaky wheel. Just ignore us. So the electric company doesn't have an actual address. Now, granted, we know that they know where their power poles are, because if a power pole goes down, they know they've got them all numbered. They know how to get, you know, whatever. That's not the issue. The issue is our address isn't in their database. So if they got breached, that address is not floating around out on BitTorrent or whatever. So for water, we're in a rural location. There was no water service, so we needed a well. So that means subcontractors. So we hired this well driller, and all they really wanted to know is how to get there. They didn't care. There wasn't really a house done yet either. So same deal. They drilled the well before the house was done, and we paid them through the general contractor. No big deal. Sewer, same deal. Subcontractor, no big deal. Gas, there's no gas lines out there, so we had to use propane. This is interesting because the propane people said, we want a credit check. And so it was like, no. So we had the general contractor just say, hey, we'll pay cash for the full amount to fill up the tank. Will you come out here? And he basically said, we're behind in this project. We really got to get this going, and the owner of the house is out of town on vacation for a while. It's going to really stall the project. Will you please come on out? And they said, sure. So trash. We found a small business. They wanted a deposit and they wanted an address. So here's a standard response. Sorry, we don't get mail there, and we don't have an actual address for the property. We have, I'll give you a mailing address. And then I said, I'll give you rough directions on how to meet us there. So literally, we had the trash guy meet us at the property the first time. And by the way, here's my mailing address for how you actually send me invoices. And pro tip, you might maybe be able to use a pseudonym, and they may not really care as long as you pay them, right? So, first OPSEC rule, I'm going to talk about OPSEC in a little bit, but the first rule is anything that has our address on it, that's a tie to our identity in any which way, shape, or form, does not end up in this, what we refer to as city trash. We burned all that. That's one of the interesting things about living out in the sticks. We can do that. So the bad part is I had to drop the trash off at the end of the driveway on the other side of the locked gate. That's a half mile. That means you're either carrying it down or it's in your car. Not fun. So for phone, we said, you know what, we're just going to stick with 4G LTE. We can get it out here, get good enough signal, and we'll use our mailing address. Yes, the phone company can triangulate. Yes, that's interesting. If we were criminals, that would be a problem, and we would do burners, and we would have different burners for at the house that never were powered up anywhere else, and we would have a different burner for in town that we never powered up and took there. We had the battery out before. I mean, get all that, but that wasn't our point. We thought that was like beyond, reasonable. J.J. Luna in his book says, hey, you can pay somebody else to manage your phone plan. I did that for a while, or I would be on a relative's phone plan and would just do it that way. Decided not to even mess with that anymore. It's not worth it. Internet. This crowd. Yeah. Yeah. The mailing address. Just gave them a mailing address in town. They don't really care. So they say property at blah, 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 blah. They have a legal description of where the property is, and they don't really care. I gave them checks that issue the checks. Good question. Which have the mailing address on the check. Yeah. So for internet, we tried satellite for a while, and actually satellite's way better now than it used to be. Exceed and the Viasat has decent satellites up there, and you can actually do certain things better. But the latency was just too much, so we switched to fixed wireless, and we actually installed a 50-foot tower. We're out where I'm at. Yes, this is commitment, people. I have a 50-foot tower, but it's not tall enough where I have to have the red blinky lights and have all the regulations around it. It just needs to be taller than the trees, and it points out to another tower that's like 3, 4, whatever miles, so many miles away, and line of sight over the trees. That was good enough, by the way, for 50 milliseconds to Google, and that was kind of the point. So the ISP obviously knows where this actual tower is, of course, so they can support us, but they have a mailing address, and again, we pay them on time. And you know what? They love us because they deal with customers out in rural areas, as you might imagine, that don't pay their bills very well. So the only thing they've got is our mailing address, and of course, they know how to fix their stuff. And again, rough driving directions for installation. Go down this road, blah 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 blah. Roughly, we'd say 3 to 6 miles. I might know it's exactly 4.2 or whatever the distance is. That's not the real distance. But I'm not going to tell them, right? And that's not the point. We want to give them, drive down here and make a left, and I'll meet you at the road, right by the gate. So, yeah, I spend more than $200 a month for 6 up, 6 down. It hurts. But I get 50 milliseconds to Google, and we actually can get work done. There's one other, yeah. It is, however, most of those are limited. And so there are some things around it. If I was staying at this property for too much longer, I'd imagine that would eventually be what I switch to. That's a good question. For homeowners, this is the one database where the house address and my name are actually tied together. The underwriter, as we're setting this policy up, said, why does your mailing address not match the house address? Well, it's really simple, because it's rural and we don't get mail there. Oh, okay. Guess what? This conversation happened like 4 or 5 times. A different underwriter would call me a couple weeks later, like, yeah, we're working on your policy, and then we noticed the addresses don't match. Like, yeah. So get to the point where like, oh, I'd cut them off because we don't get mail there before they'd even finish. Oh, okay. And eventually the policy's written. That's fine. So this leads us to OPSEC, and this is the hard part, right? So notice the subtitle, Briefing the Family. So it comes time to move in, and I hate moving. And every time I've ever moved, I've said I'm getting a mover next time. And then this time we're like, no, this is part of the whole experiment. We're going to do it ourselves, right? Yay. So kids, this gets interesting really quickly. Kids, you can't tell your friends where you live. Yeah, you're not abducted, though. We're your real mommy and daddy. It turns out this is harder the older they are. The younger they are, it's pretty easy. They're like, just 2 or 3. They don't care. Eventually, kids get older and they want to start playing with friends or whatever. So for adults, we say, hey, you know what? Use your mailing address for everything. And by adults, I already know this. So that means my spouse. You need to use your mailing address for everything. And that's not always fun. Sometimes we run into people that will absolutely say, we must have your physical address. I asked my attorney. They don't. So what we do is, the 99% of the time where they don't need that physical address, we just tell their little itching ears what they want to hear. This is my address. And then I give them the mailing address. Notice I didn't say this is my mailing address. I said this is my address. I never lied. I just know that you're not smart. So, and it satisfies them. On that note, actually, Kohl's department store canceled my wife's credit card because they knew that it was not our physical address, and I shed a single tear for that. So, when it comes time for parties, we say, hey, please entertain them somewhere else if you can, and that obviously didn't work. So, when entertaining, carefully word the driving directions. Travel down X, blah, 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 blah miles, turn left, and then, by the way, there'll be a temporary landmark by the gate. Like balloons for the gate. Why a temporary landmark? Because you can remove it. And in your city friends, all trees look the same. All rural gates look the same. They don't remember how to get there. Sometimes I have to meet them and escort them in and out. So this obviously requires a bit of social engineering, and this gets old. Registering to vote's a gray area. If you get your property, what you really want to do is try to find a way to get your property and your mailing address somehow in the same precinct, so that there's less of an issue. It turns out ours wasn't. So we decided, maybe we should just abstain from some things. So it depends. This is another sign. No one said this would be cheap or easy. This takes a real commitment. No deliveries to the house, period, except for all the deliveries you have to the house. So usually we say, my address is blah, that's the mailing address, but please deliver to, and you give directions. And companies don't like doing this except for they like to get paid, so they will do it. So we say, again, drive X miles, turn, call this cell number, we'll meet you at the road by the lock gate. And they hate it, and it's confusing, and I usually have to repeat it like 8 times, but it works every time. And so again, it's part of the whole process. All e-commerce deliveries to the UPS store. Guess what? Pickup hours are up until 6 p.m. and at 4 on Saturdays, and not at all on Sundays. So, you do that, plus it's a 25-minute drive for me. That's not convenient, right? So, if you get that neat little fast shipping the next day, same day, 2-day delivery, whatever, it really kind of doesn't matter anymore. It's just a pain that you just have to deal with. Yeah. No, not at all. The question was, you're going to mail every day. Yeah. Credit cards to the mailing address. All the credit cards, all banks, everything went to the mailing address. So that's not a problem. It's all consistent. That's really the thing that they care about. From a tech perspective, obviously you want to disable GPS EXIF tagging. So this was interesting. So the beginning, it was we would turn this off and on for vacations. So when it comes time to leave, I would say, here, honey, give me your phone. What are you doing? Hold on. No. And when when the plane would land, we'd literally, give me your phone. No, just give me your phone. Here you go. And we're back. And it's backing off. Now we get the neat little GPS tagging, but you have to remember to do it. Also, location tracking in all apps, which I know this crowd knows this. That probably means iOS, not Android, at least until KitKat, right? We didn't even have that functionality on the Android side. And I'm just not a fan of the Android side when it comes to privacy. iOS, to me, is way better, even with iCloud stuff, right? So, register your Internet of Things, your smart toaster, to some other address. Disposable emails and something else and fake names. Obviously, that's not anything new to you guys. And then we did VPN all of our traffic for a while to obfuscate our source IP, which is cool, except for then you don't get localized search results. And you say, hey Google, what movies are there? Well, in San Jose, like, I'm not in San Jose. So we eventually just stopped doing this because of this whole, when we switched to ISPs and everything, it turns out that they were just obfuscating it kind of generically for us anyway. It was in the big college town that was, you know, a half-hour drive away. So it didn't matter. It wasn't close enough, and that was fine. And then you get your local searches back. We decided against GPS jamming. Seriously considered it, looked into it, figured out I was within my wheelhouse of capability. I decided not to do it because it just wasn't worth it. Because, you know what? I would rather just vet who comes over. And by the way, there's a couple of knuckleheads that I told them, you take that off of Facebook right now. And why do you tag all of your pictures at my kid's birthday party or whatever it might be? Most map apps don't have aerial photos of the house, or they didn't at the time. And this is really great. So aerial photography is definitely improved for urban areas. They pass multiple times, maybe once a year or even more often in some cases. But in the rural areas, it did not. So satellite imagery, you know, out where we were is out of date, right? Which is a great thing. So one of the rules we had is never put anything near the house as a destination, or either leaving from or going to as a landmark. So we'd literally say, okay, when you get, and tell my wife, when you get to this intersection, you may then turn apps on, the map app on, and then tell them where you want to go if you want directions. That way it's always start and stop from there. But the apps have ways of collecting your information anyway. It would still, you'd go out someplace and you'll say, hey, you're N minutes from home. And like, how does it figure that out? Well, it's because you put it on your charger at night and it doesn't move and it knows you're sleeping, so it assumes that's probably where you live, right? So bandwidth is expensive. This is another interesting tech side, right? It turns out I can't stream 3 shows at 4K resolution simultaneously and still work. And WebEx is usually the thing that breaks, not that. So it's like we're going to batch schedule stuff. So it's kind of like old school tech. I'm sitting here thinking, okay, I got this new whatever. I'm going to download this ISO off MSDN. It's going to happen. I'm going to schedule it for 11 p.m. or whatever it might be. You just had to think like this, which is really funny. Johnny Long, if you've ever heard him do his talk about living in Africa, he's like, I relate. I shouldn't have to relate, but I do. So the chase. So at one point we decided we're going to have this table stakes game where basically it's bragging rights and a steak dinner. So I brought a bunch of hacker friends, some technologists, some people that had law enforcement affiliations, and we said, all right, this is not CBS's The Hunted. This is not active recon, okay? But it's passive surveillance. You can do data mining. No violation of any laws, please, especially the ones that would get me in trouble with law enforcement agencies. And my kids are off limits. That was pretty much the rules, right? One of them contacted a DE agent friend, and that particular friend said, yeah, I give up on the terms of passive. Now, he could have found me active, right? Like, you go to the mailbox where all this mail is going and sit on it and wait till I show up and just follow me home, right? It's not hard. But for passive, that was pretty good. After several months, a friend named Danny sent me this text message, and I looked at it, and I recognized 2 things. One, I knew that I hadn't mowed out there in a while, and the grass is really, really tall. And that was about right. And 2, it was getting to be twilight, and that matched the picture. And I was like, what in the world is this? This is recent. This is hitting home. They're getting close, right? Like you imagine the little depth charges. That one was too close to the submarine, right? So it turns out a friend posted birthday party details for one of my kids on Facebook. I did not know it. And that friend had lax privacy. But guess what? Even though you got a hold of this picture, and by the way, there's some good social engineering. He went and contacted this kid who posted this information and said, hey, I'm from the internet. Would you like to get on your motorcycle and ride 25 minutes out into the sticks to this weird place in the gate that you've been to before and take a photo? And this kid says, sure, sounds legit. and does it, right? The cool thing is he had an old Android phone that didn't GPS tag the photos. So when he got the photo back, I was like, neener, you did all that work and you still don't have GPS. So weeks later, Danny finally found an aerial map. He found out there's a third-party map service that actually had some black and white aerial photography, which was kind of cool. And I shamed him at this point, and I said, there's another app that actually has aerial photography that you need to find inside of 5 minutes, or I'm just going to forever, frown on you. And he found it. Anyway, so this is the property. This is what we're talking about, the half-mile drive and way back in the middle. And you can see with all the woods like it was, for the longest time, all the aerial photography just had all those woods. There was nothing really clear to see. And when he did roughly hone in on the area where it was, he was sending me aerial photography of neighbors up to like 4 miles away. Is this your property? No. Well, I don't see any other places that have half-mile driveways. And I was like, yep. So, but he never got an actual street address after all of that. He figured out where it was, got legal descriptions of properties and stuff like that, but never figured out an actual street address for the property. So now what? So while we've enjoyed the natural beauty of living out in the sticks, and these are all from my place, right? Really, it's a really gorgeous area. We have decided that we like local amenities and smart apps and fast bandwidth and cheap bandwidth for that matter, and immediate gratification of same-day deliveries and Walmart.com grocery delivery. There you go. So all that kind of stuff. So am I jaded? Probably pretty jaded at this point. So the question is privacy even possible? Yes, if you pay cash for your real estate. If you don't pay cash for your real estate, don't even try. That's the first rule. Yes, if you choose the right location. If you go in the wrong location, there's going to be this massive paper trail of building permits and house plans and all this other stuff. Yes, if you're single or if your spouse is committed. This is kind of a big deal. I somehow tricked her into doing this, and she went along with it for the longest time. By the way, a little detail that I left out of this, that means like surveillance detection routes. So when you drive home at night and a car's following you, you keep going past the driveway until you don't see the headlights, and then you turn around and you come back. That was the rule. Just for the fun, right? Yes, if nobody visits you and you're a hermit. So if you want to be a Unabomber, you can pull this off. That's not me. Yes, if you have no kids or your kids are little, probably you can do it. I think the older the kids get, the more interaction they have with friends, the less likely you're going to be able to pull this off. And yes, if your spouse lets you manage their smart things, their phones, like the honey, here, give me the. So, and yes, if you can tolerate massive inconvenience. As you can tell, there's lots of inconvenience, especially a half-mile drive with stinking trash in your car every week. And yes, if you can tolerate driving a half hour to closest retail, right? I mean, this is the kind of the deal that we had to do. Maybe we could have gotten a little closer, but it would have been harder. So, with that. What's that? Missouri. Yeah. I'm the privacy god. I'm nuts. Yeah. Yeah. The prior DOJ experience. Another question.
I think I might be out of videos. Let me just see if I added that Robert Anton one. Dude. I should probably put these in order. Oh god. Alright, so oh yeah, this is a good one. I guess I can do some magic videos too.
No, it's duck hunting season. That, sir, is an investigated fabrication. It's wabbit season. Duck season. Wabbit season. Duck season. Wabbit season. Duck season. Wabbit season. Wabbit season. Duck season. Wabbit season. I say it's duck season, and I say fire. Let's try. Wabbit season. Duck season. Wabbit season. Duck season. Wabbit season. Duck season.
Uh-oh.
Okay. Oh, who's the guy that used to do like
the big advantage to being depolarized, highly polarized and reactive state that gets him shot in the face. He's polarized himself against Bugs Bunny, and therefore he's going to say the opposite of whatever Bugs Bunny says. It's that simple to manipulate a polarized person. Polarity is nothing if not predictable. It's real easy to get somebody polarized against you and then slip in a suggestion that is the opposite of what you really want them to do, and they'll go and do that simply because they're opposed to you. But it doesn't work if you're polarized and opposed to them yourself. To be able to not react to their polarity against you is key, because otherwise you have two dappy ducks arguing and debating each other endlessly with no resolution in a polarity shoving match. To use polarity to your advantage, though, you have to depolarize yourself to the point where your ego doesn't react to people getting up in your face, calling you names, cussing you out, etc.
No, it's duck hunting. Oh, just
God, I can't save the clip.
duck season. Wabbit season.